Welcome to the roller coaster of Holy Week. And we kick off this wild ride with Palm Sunday, which is the day that everybody came to Jerusalem and they greeted Jesus. He was coming in on a donkey, and they threw their cloaks down on the road and they waved palm branches and they celebrated saying, "Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." And they were celebrating because they believed that he was the Messiah they had been waiting for. I don't know if you ever waited for anything important, like not like waited in line or waited for tickets, but like waited on something to happen that was gonna just change everything. Well, what if you'd waited your whole life for that? Your whole life you had waited for this thing to happen, this person to come and this thing to happen that was gonna change everything. That's who Jesus was for the people who had gathered and lined the streets that day. And they were absolutely right, and they were kind of wrong too about who Jesus was. I mean, he was the one that God sent, fully human, fully God, come to save humanity and all of that good stuff. But he wasn't in the fact that many of the people believed that the Messiah would be a literal liberator. They were living under Roman occupation, and they were waiting on somebody who would free them from the oppression of the Roman Empire. So a very different vibe was what they were looking for than what they got. So Jesus was absolutely who they were waiting for, but it turns out he really wasn't who many of them expected. But they didn't know that on Palm Sunday. On this Palm Sunday, all was great, all was sunshine and unicorns, and everybody was celebrating. And what makes Holy Week such a wild roller coaster of a ride is that it starts with all this great joy and celebration and excitement, and it quickly takes a turn. Jesus starts challenging the religious authorities, the governmental authorities. He starts to tick people off. We move on to Maundy Thursday, where Jesus starts talking about his death and breaking bread and pouring wine and telling us this is how he should be remembered after his death. And then, of course, on to Good Friday, where he is crucified and dies on the cross. Now, of course, we know the rest of the story, but the people of the day did not, and especially his disciples. Now, granted, Jesus had told them that this was going to happen, but they either didn't hear him or they didn't believe him, or in the midst of this great grief and loss, they couldn't even begin to process that because they were devastated. I mean, 3 years, y'all, 3 years they had followed this man. They had left their homes, their families, their jobs to follow this man called Jesus because they believed that he could change everything. And he did change everything, but like so many of the other people who were waiting on the Messiah, they kind of thought he was going to fix everything. And that's not what Jesus was about. But you can imagine how devastated they were. And we know that feeling, all of us. If you've made it past, I guess, the age of, 10? While we were not there, and we have not walked a mile in the disciples' shoes, we have all, it doesn't take us very long in life to get to a point where we have everything going our way, things are going well, we feel like we've gotten into a groove, that we may have gotten everything together, and life just pulls the rug out from under us. Something happens. We get that notice that 2 weeks from Tuesday, we'll no longer have a job. We get a call with the test results, and they are not good. Somebody knocks on our door and tells us that this person that we love and saw day before yesterday is no longer walking on this earth. We know what it is like to have our world turned upside down by news that we never expected and ending up in places we never thought we would be. Times when life is so dark that we can't imagine there will ever be life again. And even if we can find the light at the end of the tunnel, we are pretty sure that it is a train that is headed straight for us. So yeah, we know what those disciples felt like. But of course, we know the rest of the story. We know that the despair and the disappointment and even death were not the end of the story. It was true then, and it is still true now because of what God has done for us through Jesus Christ. Despair, disappointment, and even death are never the end of our story. And the journey of Holy Week is here to help us remember that. Like so many things in life, we know the stories, we know what happens, but so many things that we know in our heads, we fail to live out in our lives. So making this journey of Holy Week helps us to remember how true these things we believe actually are. And it all starts with the celebration of Palm Sunday, because I believe it is a reminder that we should never pass up the opportunity to celebrate. I mean, Jesus knew what was coming. He knew that stuff was about to get bad. And he could have told all of those people who had gathered for a celebration, okay, simmer down, y'all. Bad stuff is about to happen. Everybody needs to get serious. No, he didn't do that. He let the celebration go on, even though he knew what was coming. You know, one of the things I like to tell people, you may have heard me say this, is that when things are really, really bad, know that it won't always feel this way. And when things are really, really good, know that it won't always feel this way, and act accordingly. Meaning, of course, when we are in those places where we are in darkness and despair, we need to know that it won't last forever. This too shall pass, which, by the way, is not biblical. Don't let anybody tell you it's in the Bible. It's not, but it is not untrue. And in the same way, when things are really, really good, we should never take it for granted. We should acknowledge it and celebrate it and never pass up the opportunity to revel in the goodness and the joy. I think that's why Holy Week starts and ends with celebrations. But in the middle, yeah, it gets rough. And it is our reminder that disappointment, despair, and even death are never the end of our story. So who is this week for? For anyone who has ever been betrayed by a friend. For anyone who has ever been the victim of injustice. For anyone who has ever failed to celebrate because, you know, the good times may not last. For anyone who's ever found themselves a victim of their own choices. For anyone who is scared of what the people in charge might do next. For anyone who is overwhelmed by the amount of evil in our world. And for anyone who needs to know that you are not alone, this week is for you. Welcome to Holy Week. Make the journey.